Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am, as always, honored and excited to get to host another Power to Fly Chat and Learn virtual event. Now, before we dive in and let y'all know a little bit more about today's event, obviously, we're going to be growing your career through times of transformation. But before we dive in, I just want to say hello and welcome, and we'll go over some quick housekeeping points. This will be especially helpful if today is your first event with Power to Fly. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet y'all today. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers. Thank you all so much for joining us. I love seeing your familiar names, faces, and avatars in the chat. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Now, the big thing to know about Power to Fly events is participation. We want you to make sure that you are able to participate in a variety of different ways, however you would prefer. If you'd like, you're more than welcome to turn your cameras on, share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But y'all, there is no need to be Instagram perfect, okay? Just because I'm rocking my 8-day messy bun does not mean you cannot come to us with your, from your kitchen tables, with your bathrobes on, furry coworkers, the whole shebang. We just want to meet you where you are. Now, if you don't want to join with your camera, that's fine, y'all, truly. No need to be Instagram perfect. You do not have to if you don't want to. You are always welcome to chime in the chat if you'd like. So as we go through, I just want to encourage all of our audience members to dive in here with us. Please feel free to dive into the chat if you'd like. Let us know where you are joining us from. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So if you'd like to share, please let us know where you're calling in from and if you know whose land you're on. Oh, quick visual descriptor. Sorry, I forgot this, y'all. My name is Meg Alexander. I'm a 38-year-old white woman. I have pink and purple hair in a messy bun, blue glasses, and I'm wearing a blue shirt. Now, the other thing I want to remind y'all about today is that we are recording. We're also live streaming to YouTube. Hi, YouTube. And what that means for all of you is you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with the wonderful people from Autodesk. And you can just know and rest assured that in about 4 to 5 business days, Power to Fly is going to email everybody with a link to where this recording is going to live when it's posted on powertofly.com. Now, let's say that Psycat or Chris says something like mind-blowing, paradigm shifting. You cannot wait another second to tell a friend or a coworker or a relative. You don't have to wait 4 to 5 business days. You can always head over to our YouTube channel. Like I said, we're live streaming there right now. The recording will usually be posted by the end of business today. And there's a whole other section on our YouTube channel, really great stuff, but there's a whole section of some of our favorites, our best hits when it comes to chat and learns. Now, obviously, the YouTube channel is great, and we all like immediacy, but I do very much recommend that you check out our website. That is where the full archive, all of our free resources live. And these are the resources that we want to get in the hands of as many people as possible. So if you are here joining us for a Power to Fly Chat and Learn, probably a lot of our mission and our metrics, like gender parity in the workplace, pay equity, a lot of these things are probably important to you as well. If that's the case, I very much encourage you to let your social media network know that you're learning and growing with Power to Fly. You can @ us. We are @ Power to Fly on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I don't think we're on TikTok yet, but you can always @ us. We're happy to retweet or reshare anything that y'all post. You're welcome to take photos or video as we go. Anything we can do to, like I said, get these resources in the hands of as many people as possible. Now, the last thing that I wanted to harp on today before we dive into our chat is I wanted to take a real quick look at our code of conduct. Now, this is a whole lot of mumbo jumbo and legal jargon, but basically what it boils down to is don't be a jerk, okay? That's literally all we ask. Just lead from a place of kindness and respect, and it's pretty hard to go astray there. If you got questions on this, you want more detail, more info, just please feel free to DM me, Meg. You can find my name, Megan Alexander, on the dropdown. All right, now, very excited to introduce y'all to our reps from Autodesk today. But before I do, I just want to highlight Autodesk as a partner of Power to Fly. Now, they have been a partner of ours for as long as I've been with Power to Fly, so at least 5.5 years. And Autodesk is a really amazing company. I'm going to let Sycat and Chris tell you a little bit more about them. But basically, if anything that we say on today's chat kind of piques your interest about Autodesk, I really recommend you check out their company page. Gosh, one of these days I'm going to get my weatherman like gestures right, huh? I really recommend that you check out their company page. There's some really great information in there. Things like overview and about will tell you more about the company. Company Insights that tab here is gonna tell you about some of the more unique aspects of Autodesk. I also recommend you check out the events tab. That's where there's going to be signups and logins for future events if they already have them planned. It's also where you can see past events like today. So I very much recommend you check that out. Now, again, if you are at all interested in Autodesk, there's some ways you can utilize this company page for your benefit and to help you in your job search. If that interests you at all, just hang out for about another 40 minutes or so. Pardon me. And once we get to the end of today's session, I'll tell you a little bit more about how you can utilize this page in your job search, try and make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great fit. All right, now, before we go into our questions today, I want to introduce you to the people that we will be talking with. So first up, we have Chris Bittner. Chris is the Vice President of Enterprise Customer Success at Autodesk. Chris, before we dive into questions, what would you like our audience to know about you today?
Well, first of all, Meg, now I know what a messy bun is. I've heard you reference it twice, so thank you for that education. I think the best thing I can tell you all is I am based in Southern California, mostly sunny, usually sunny. Right now, it's a little dark at the hour we're broadcasting. I have been at Autodesk for 14 years. I've lived in multiple countries with Autodesk. I've lived in multiple parts of California with Autodesk. And as a fun fact, I have three wonderful children, a great wife, and they are truly the center of my world. So that's the fun fact. If you see Nerf darts coming in, it's probably because I'm waking people up in the house right now.
The second you said, now I know what a messy bun was, that was the second I was like, oh, this guy doesn't have daughters. He's got sons. That's why. Short-haired people in that house, because otherwise my husband he rocks a messy bun like crazy, but he also has hair longer than mine. So,
I have a daughter, but we haven't gotten to the messy bun
oh,
phase yet.
you'll
So
get
that
there.
you're helping me. Thank you.
You'll get there. Just don't be like my dad, okay? If you're going to go someplace in the morning and her hair looks less than ideal, don't say, are you going to put a hat on? Because it's not a battle you want to win. So,
Sounds a little judgy. Are you gonna put a hat on? Yeah.
right? Thank you. Oh,
All
thank
right.
you. Now you're getting it. See, already up on there. All right. Chris, thank you for that great introduction. All right, now joining Chris on stage, we are going to talk to Sycat Bhattacharya. Sycat is the Senior Manager for Technology Consulting and Enterprise Customer Success. Sycat, what would you like our audience members to know about you today?
First of all, thank you for having us here. It's a wonderful opportunity to present and represent Autodesk. Uh, I'm based out of Frisco, Texas. One thing that I would like to say is I've been with Autodesk for 20 years. I like to say that I've kind of grown up here. So a lot of this, what you see is actually growing up within Autodesk. The fun fact that I would say is pretty similar to Chris, which is my wife and my son, we do a lot of activities together. My son is at the cusp in his high school that he's actually interested in AI. And now he's actually become kind of my go-to person for a lot of questions because he's more up to date than I possibly want to be. So he's definitely somebody who's actually now teaching me than me teaching him about AI. So it's fun to see the evolution.
I love that so much. Is there anything in particular revolving around AI that interests him or that like kind of sparked this for him?
He actually did a summer program with the University of Texas, Dallas. They kind of used a project which kind of looks at the mental health issues that an individual might have by feeding in Twitter handle so that it could mine the data and actually give informative insights into whether an individual is really struggling. It doesn't depend on what the person is actually saying, but inherently going through the post to say, is there a challenge there that we want to solve for? So yeah, I think their outcome was pretty good in terms of success rate with what they came up with.
That's fascinating. I love that idea. Now you've given me something I'm going to follow, dive down a rabbit hole on later. So thank you for that, Sycat.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. I'm going to bring both of our speakers up on stage here and stop sharing. So we're going to go on into questions. Now, as we do that, I do want to encourage our audience members. We populated the questions today based on questions that you all asked at registration. So because you took time out of your day to be here live with Power to Fly and Autodesk, we want to reward you for that. So if you are here and you're not sure if we're going to get to ask one of your questions today, please feel free, throw it into that chat feature, y'all. I want to hear what y'all want to know. If you are, ask early, ask often. That's the best way to make sure your question gets addressed today. And if you have any questions that you would like raised, but you want to be kept anonymous, no worries. Just DM them to me. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the dropdown. I'll be happy to raise your question and keep you anonymous. If we're going over a question of yours and maybe there's some more detail, context, anything else that we should know, you're welcome to tell us, y'all. Please, 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 please. Just understand that you all have the power to drive today's conversation. So bring your questions. Make sure that I know what you want to know so that way I can bring you true value from today's event. All right, so we're going to get started with this idea of embracing change and a growth mindset. These are two kind of modalities of thinking that maybe people aren't necessarily the most familiar with or apply in this manner. Do you think that there are mindset shifts that are necessary to grow and adapt during periods of organizational or industry transformation? Saikat, I want to start with you.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. Change is always constant, whether some of the changes are big, which can disrupt the industry. AI is definitely one of them. But if you look around, every day there's probably a change happening. So for me, I think the realization that change is something that we have to live with. The strategy that I, as an individual, have, I think, gained for, like I said, I've been with the company for 20 years. I've been very excited with challenges and changes that we have gone through. Often it has given me the opportunity to look back and look at what were the decisions that we made, which actually made us more successful, and what were the decisions that we could learn from. But from a pure mindset of change, I think the secret recipe that's worked for me is to kind of think that every week is my first week. So what would I do to keep learning as if it's my new job? Obviously, I don't have to do onboarding, so I can be productive from the first hour, but kind of that refresh, the reset to keep learning from what my folks are saying, what our customers are learning through, and having that excitement about, oh my God, this is my first week at the job. I really want to prove to myself, to my customers, to my employer. I think that sort of a growth mindset is something that has worked really well for me.
I really like that. I think that's a very good way of looking at things. Chris, how do you feel about this? Do you take a similar tack, or do you maybe have a different way of looking at this?
I mean, I just would have +1 to PsyCat and to show a learning mindset. I didn't know PsyCat had been here 20 years, so that's super celebratable. I've been at Autodesk for 14 years, and I think the one thing that defines my journey is it feels like I have done a new job every year, and that's because Autodesk is a really innovative company, not because my job has literally changed every year. So that openness to newness, I think every time there's been a change at the company, every time there's been an organizational direction, a strategic project, I think I've embraced it like it was an opportunity to grow. And if you compare that, I think a lot of times people look at those changes or shifts as disruptive to their current state. And that can lead to a less embracing mindset and one which really doesn't help you necessarily get ahead from that change. And so I think openness is a big part of that growth process and ensuring that you really maximize career growth, you maximize personal growth, you maximize learning from every changing opportunity that presents itself.
I like that. All right. So when we're talking about these like rapid changes that can run through industries, right? I feel like depending on how long you've been in the work world or depending on what industry you're in, you might have been through one or several of these by now. When it comes to like, if I ask you like, to tell us about a transitional point in your industry, I'm assuming something comes to mind. Chris, what comes to mind for you when you think back to, a time of like a lot of change in your industry?
Like I said, over a 14-year career at Autodesk, we have done so much to change. So whether it was shifting our business from one which was perpetual to subscription, moving from on CPU software to cloud-based software, Right now, we're doing some substantial shifts as it relates to the way we serve our customers with AI. There have been a number of these kinds of shifts. And again, I think that's one of the reasons why I love working at Autodesk. We're on the forefront of innovation, and that presents itself with a lot of change, both personally and also professionally. So I think those are the big shifts that I would mention or call out.
I like that. Okay. Psycat, what have you found to be most effective when you're trying to drive that customer adoption and really get them on board with new changes? What do you think is most effective to achieve those goals?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's irrespective of change or not. I think first of all, it's the positioning of us working with our customers to be truly their partners in their journey. We have to realize that every customer is going through their sort of changes, they're in their transformation journey. They might be at different points in their transformation journey, so acknowledgement of where they're at, but then truly being a partner so that we can actually understand the business challenges, truly seem as if they're our employer. We really want to help solve their problems. And then for me, what has worked is constantly thinking about what they said last time we spoke. Like it could be a quarterly business review. They might have shared the challenges that I've heard. But if I find interesting artifacts or thought-provoking ideas, articles, I've always shared it with the customer. What that helped me do is position the fact that I've been thinking, my team has been thinking about them all the time. We're trying to help them as they navigate through the journey. And as changes are difficult for us as Autodesk, we also have to realize it's probably more difficult for them too. So, what could we do to make sure that we are actually helping them get towards where they want to be? And most important part is it's a journey. It's a journey where we will have milestones, we will have successes, we will have wins. How do we fail fast if it's an opportunity that doesn't work for the customer? How do we pivot? I think being part to be partnering with our customers at that level of engagement is what's probably actually worked the best for me and my team working with our customers.
No, I think that's a great way to look at it. Chris, how do you feel about this? Is this kind of the same playbook that you've run when you've tried to help customers kind of follow along with whatever new adoption y'all are doing at Autodesk?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just say a big plus one to what Psycat mentioned, that you do have to have that partnership mentality. And so I think that we want to be seen as a strategic partner. I think the other part of it is, as companies change, as we ask our customers to change, helping them understand the why. And again, that's one of the cornerstones of that partnership. Then I think the last thing I would say is helping customers realize the value. Oftentimes they see a software or technology provider as an investment category, and it is. But you don't want them to see it as just a cost. You want them to see the value, the realizable value that they get through that partnership. And that can be helping them become the best in their industry. It could be helping them grow their business faster. It could be helping them navigate competitive situations. And generally speaking, if you're doing that well, there's a real meaningful value that you deliver to the customer. And so that's really the outcome of this strategic partnership, and making sure that you're able to put that value in the equation and have them recognize you as somebody that delivers tangible business context or value to them.
No, I think that's a really good way of looking at it, is thinking not only what changes, what these changes are going to mean for your customer, but also, like you said, like they're going to be a little bit more unsure than you are. And so it really does kind of make sense that you're basically reestablishing yourself as that person that they can lean on, kind of like Psycat, what you had talked about with like maintaining that relationship and, hey, I've been thinking about your business and here's what I've been thinking. Because truly, so often, I mean, it sounds really silly, but like it's the thought that counts. It really is, right? Like customers just want to know that they're not being forgotten. They want to know that you are thinking about them, that their business is important to you, like it's important to them. So I think that's really, really wonderful. Okay, let's talk about kind of one of the larger later changes to probably many people's industries has been AI. So with today's job market, what do you think candidates can do to make themselves stand out when they're competing against AI technologies in some places? Chris, do you want to start us?
Yeah, I mean, I would first and foremost say AI is going to be a really big opportunity for all of tech, all of us in the world as workers. But I don't think it necessarily replaces people. I think that's an important caveat. I think there are a lot of misunderstandings as it relates to what AI does. And there's always characteristics that people deliver, whether it's empathy or what have you, that is something that people bring, technology and AI will never bring. So I would ensure that you really speak to your unique experiences. Partnership, as SciCap talked so eloquently about in the last question, isn't formed between a piece of software, an AI bot, and a customer. And so there's always relationship management. There's the human dynamics that people are able to bring to those, the foundations of that partnership. And so I would make sure that you really emphasize those experiences in terms of the ways in which you've been able to help forge partnerships, in terms of the ways in which you've been able to work with AI. And then I think the last thing I would say is AI is a really important word. I was going to say it's a buzzword. I would say it's more than a buzz. It is a really significant platform and strategic technology shift. But we're still really in the early days right now. So I think a lot of times when you talk to candidates or you talk to people internally, there's pressure to be an expert at AI right now. And there are very few experts. And what we define as expertise today in 6 months is going to look really different. So you have to think about the kinds of characteristics that really help people in a fast change, early stage environment is a learning mindset. How quickly can you learn? How curious are you? What steps are you taking to learn some of this technology and how you apply it to your job? So those are the things that I would really focus on. Those are elements that I think software or AI cannot compete with.
No, that you make a really good point, right? Like you're trying to set up an expectation that this package I'm presenting you is how I handle challenges, right? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody, I mean, gone are the days where continuing education was only a thing that like doctors and lawyers had to worry about, right? That day is so incredibly past, it's like it's laughable. So because we're all still all going to have to be learning new things, I tell people, I try and think of it like Instagram, right? Instagram wasn't scary when it first came out. People were just like, sure, I'll like mess around on this. My food, sure, I'll take pictures of my food. I don't know what people want to see. But we all kind of messed around and all of a sudden people started learning about filters and they learned about color editing and they learned about exposure and blah, blah. And because it was kind of a silly thing, it wasn't scary because maybe I'll figure it out, maybe I won't, but I'll just mess around on it. And I feel like if you treat AI like that, it's a lot less scary, right? It's a lot less like, what am I learning? Because like Instagram didn't immediately have real world applications for your business, right? At least not right away. So I think it's really interesting that, when people talk about this, they don't talk about it in a sense of like, oh, they're so excited, like a new feature for something. They're just like, oh, this is scary. And it's like, but it's not, it doesn't have to be. We're getting some really, really good questions in the chat about AI. So thank you everybody for sending these in. Before we go into those though, I just want to touch on here this idea of if the transition in question is navigating between industries. What do you think people should be thinking of, especially if the job requirement they're going after demands specific experience in that field? Psycat, how would you approach this if you have somebody that's looking for a role but has never worked within, an industry like Autodesk before?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have had individuals who have expressed interest in transitioning to other roles and other career pathways, and Autodesk truly is really supportive of doing that. One of the things that I've actually realized is it's important that we validate the assumptions that we might be making when we look at a different career pathway or a transition to a lateral role. What I mean by that is it's always good to have some sort of an informational session or sessions with individuals who are actually in the role. Often what we look in maybe in social media or when we are reading through blog posts might actually not be the reality of the role. So it's good to definitely validate. And we've been able to support our teams to do that by basically having informational sessions. Like they would talk about day in the life of the lateral or the new roles that my team has been interested in. Often, some of my team members have come back and said, you know what, this is great. I've learned a lot about this aspect of field, but maybe I really want to transition to something else. And can we explore that opportunity as my part of career development plan? So we've been able to pivot and say, okay, if that's not what you wanted to do, this is probably where you might be of finding interest. But most importantly, I think everybody has a different way of working and learning. So if it's a new role that you're interested in, finding opportunities, first of all, in the current organization to probably do a small project. Like I have done this myself early in my career. I was very interested in product management. I worked with the director of product management in one of our products and platform back in the day. And I used to do quite a bit of these learning exercises, and to my surprise, he actually found value in what I was building, and those became conversational points. I knew a lot more about market requirement documents, product requirement documents for product managers just because I was learning and doing those as exercises. And the individual on the other side was coaching me through that. And in the process, he also received value from a different perspective that he probably didn't think about. Eventually, I did not transition to career as a career into product management, but now I have more empathy and realization and respect for what that role really is. So there are definitely, I would summarize this by saying, having a bit of exploration, doing a bit of conversations internally to see what does the day in the life look like, and finding projects that you might be able to do on your as a part of your development plan in the current role to truly validate if that's the path that you want to take in the future.
I like this. This is really good advice here. Chris, I want to go to you for maybe a kind of secondary look at this. Do you think that there are strategies that people should be more should use when they're trying to identify which areas within themselves would require upskilling? I think this is something that can be very difficult to try and get a handle on and can be really kind of feel tricky to assess for ourselves. But have you ever had to do this in your career? And if so, how did you tackle it?
Yeah, I mean, I might first say, because I think a lot of people would be looking at this from a perspective of, hey, how would I get a job at this company? How would I leverage my experience, which maybe feels incomplete, to work in this specific role? And I would just offer from the perspective of a hiring leader. Oftentimes the perspective is, hey, I'm not the perfect candidate, but I just want to share that there is really never a perfect candidate. So I think it's an important perspective that offers confidence coming into a process like a job search. And so sometimes you might be applying for a job like, hey, I want to be a consultant, or I want to be a customer success manager, or I want to work in the software industry, or I want to work specifically within the design software vertical. Generally speaking, the candidates that we talk to and are successful do not have all three of those specific areas of expertise. And so there are obviously generally differentiators that help people overcome things that on paper maybe make that person not look like the perfect candidate. So I wanted to offer that perspective. I think SciCat offers some interesting ideas. You get the chance to understand, engage what your gaps might be by taking on stretch projects, by looking at ways in which you're participating outside of your day-to-day job. And I think that that's an important way by which somebody can assess where they have gaps or where they have development opportunities, is to really seek to cross-train within your existing job so that you can test different areas of work style, of the type of role that you're doing. And I think the other part of this is we all have networks. And I would leverage those networks. I would make sure that you're tapping into people you know. But just because I say the word network, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone you know. You can do informational interviews. I mean, I take informational interviews often where somebody might say, hey, what would I really need to work on to get this job? Or from your perspective, what are the on paper gaps that you might see? Or alternatively, back to my first point, how might I position myself uniquely as I apply for a job like this? So make sure you're using your networks, you're using your experiences within your job. You might say sometimes people have this very fixed mindset where they say, my job doesn't allow me to explore beyond it. And I think it's everybody's, it's your mandate if you want to do something different to find ways to craft that experience such that it meets the needs of your future career. So those are some ideas, Meg.
No, I think you make several very, very good points. And one of the ones that I think we used to harp on a lot more, I feel like, depending on, the type of chat, but like truly I'll take the man at his word. Okay. When hiring managers and people are writing these job descriptions, it's a wish list, right? But like your toddler asks for like 8 ponies and 2 dogs and also, a race car for Christmas. The kid doesn't actually expect that you're going to have a race car under the Christmas tree along with the ponies, right? So it's one of these things that if you look at these lists more like a wish list, it's basically they're describing a unicorn, right? You're describing somebody who's going to be amazingly skilled and do the job for like water and sunshine. That's basically it, right? So like think about it like that. Think about closest to as opposed to no, I don't have every one of the 17,000 things that are on this list. Psycat, how about you? What would you tell people who are trying to stay up to date on the technologies that they think they're probably going to need to get these new emerging jobs? How do you recommend people stay up to date on these emerging technologies? How do you do it?
Yeah, so I think for me, what has worked is often if I'm in conversations and I'm hearing a new term that I might have heard about, but I don't think I really understand it, it's important that I actually keep a log that towards the end of the day or sometimes end of the week, I go back and read it up. Like that's my running list. It's not where you're going deep into a specific area, you're kind of going lateral and broad so that you have more understanding of those concepts. And that's, I think, very important because as many of us have a lot of these Zoom virtual meetings back to back, it's we lose sight of some gaps that inherently came through the day that we probably paid attention to, but obviously the conversation was in a different context. So we might have forgotten how to keep track of it. The other part that I definitely have leveraged a lot is besides my son, who now teaches me about AI more than I taught him early on, is obviously following a lot of the thought leaders in LinkedIn and other social platforms. I often see that even if I'm like waiting out in my car to pick up my son, who's a high schooler now, it's like I might see some of those posts that are very thought intriguing, and I definitely make it a point to save them immediately so that I can go back again. End of the day probably doesn't work often. It's end of the week, or even if it's one end of the month. It's important to look back and have a history of these are small videos that I heard somebody talk about. Often these are podcasts, which make it easier so that you can actually listen in if you're going on a long drive to make sure you're listening into what they're talking about, something you might have bookmarked. The other thing I've really valued from is actually using AI to teach me about AI. And what I mean by that is, like on my phone, I use the Chrome browser a lot. It has its inherent AI search capability. It looks for topics that I've been searching on my Google browser. What it does is it kind of gives me up-to-date news on those topics, the changes that are happening. And even if I haven't really gone through understanding that new concept, I at least know this is where probably a company is headed or there's a new innovation that's happening. So what it does is in terms of the news that's happening around the world, it keeps me up to date on what's happening. And it's kind of using that AI technology to know what's important for me for the last few weeks so that it can feed that sort of information. Because, like Chris said, we are at the cusp of AI. We have been through many disruptions in the past, but this one is very fast moving as well. So by the time we learn something, it's probably going to be outdated in 3 weeks. But it's also very important to kind of keep going at it because what it does is it gives us more realization of the capabilities and also think about the future. What do we need to build, not just ourselves, our team, our peers, our employers? Like, what do we really need to do so that we have that journey? Because for me, that's very important. It's not a snapshot in time, it's the journey of evolution that gives us more insights into where we are headed or where we might likely head.
Oof. We're getting into some deep stuff here, y'all. I like this. All right, Psycat, thank you. Okay, we're at 9:35 right now, so just FYI, y'all. I know the time goes really quickly. We're past our halfway point. So if you have questions, please feel free to send them in. I've been collecting everybody's questions so far. So we're gonna be grouping a bunch of those together to talk a little bit more about AI and how that works at Autodesk. Before we leave this topic though, Chris, I want to bring you up on stage. Are there any other sources that you utilize to stay in the know when it comes to emerging technologies? Are you also on the podcast bandwagon? How do you ingest this stuff?
Yeah, I like podcasts. I mean, I think they offer a lot of information, and long form conversations about this stuff is a great way to learn. I mean, I think there's infinite ways of learning, and you have to kind of sit down and say what's best for you individually. So podcasts are great for some people. I think the underlying characteristic people need to apply here is curiosity. And, sometimes people have superficial curiosity where they just want to read the headline so that they know how to talk about it. But hopefully people are really deeply curious about this stuff. And if you are, there are a lot of sources in the public domain for you to tap into. There's product releases. I mean, if you want to know what's on the cusp of AI tech, go to OpenAI and check out their product releases. I mean, they present these things every time they release new products. So there's a massive amount that can be learned there. Autodesk, does product releases and shares information when we launch new products and features. And then many of these, tech vendors have user conferences where you can really plug in and get a litany of information about any emerging tech or any technology that you want to learn about. So I would just say be curious. There's not one medium that's better. I think the medium that's best is the one that you most closely connect with, and that could be books, it could be product releases, it could be podcasts, it could be any number of different things. And I mean, ultimately, if you go to YouTube and you just type in a quick search, I mean, Meg, you're broadcasting us to YouTube right now, so YouTube's a
Heck
pretty
yeah.
powerful tool, and you can find well, I think you can find a lot of misinformation, but you can also find a lot of really solid information to help you learn about any number of things, whether it's tech, doing a new job, or how to fix something around the house. So there's a lot of powerful information sources out there.
Well, and you both raise a really, really good point, right? It's like Kat was talking about, you want to keep that growth mindset, you want to keep that curiosity and really nurture that. And I think that's really great advice, right? If you're going to follow your own curiosity, we're much more likely to be, if we're much more likely for new things we learn to stick if we're engaged the time we learn them, right? If we're actively pursuing that knowledge or if we're actively interested for some reason. So I think you both make a really, really excellent point, which is there's not necessarily a wrong way to go about gaining new information. Obviously, you got to trust, you think about your sources. You got to make sure that you're doing your actual research, not just super, dash and dive kind of like, oh yeah, this is a fact. But I think it is really good to highlight that there's not a wrong way to do this. If you are a person that does podcasts, listen, there's podcasts you can find. There are podcasts that are just entirely like roundups of the other podcasts you should be listening to. So truly, I love, love, love this advice.
So if I may add,
Please, yeah,
sorry to
please.
interrupt, Meg. I think most of my information that I just shared was mostly in terms of lateral understanding, but there are pockets, and I think you just alluded to is the fact that we might often need to go deep into certain areas. And everybody's got a different learning style. I think the one that works for me is basically coming up with a project. Like I look around within our enterprise customer success team, and this is probably more relevant with AI right now. It's like, what could we do to solve a certain problem? Maybe it's an internal process, and saying, I'm going to carve out 3 hours a week just to go in and try to solve that. But what it does is often I can't barely do much with the 3 hours or 4 hours per week, but it gives me enough to explore. But it's the exploration that's not just browsing, it's essentially giving me a context to say, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. And actually, when I get through, whether it's a success or a failure, it's kind of my own proof of concept. But that gives me a lot more insights to be able to more, I would say, have a critical point of view about what works and what doesn't. So I think you just mentioned something that gave me a clue as, just sharing that experience that if you have to go deep, come up with a project of your own, like do something that you forces you to explore, because reading, watching, listening often doesn't stick unless you actually do it. So
Yeah, you need
that's
that like
my style.
active.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and that is a fabulous point too. And you're right that kind of going deep, if you were to tie it to a project, it's probably a lot easier to not get lost or not kind of, overwhelm yourself in the subject matter. Sorry, y'all, my dog is very bored with me right now and just sighed very loudly under my desk.
We didn't
Um,
hear it.
she's not a fan of AI. What can I say? If it's not edible, she's not a fan. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the ways that we have to kind of adjust if we are trying to adapt to new technologies. Not everybody gets on board, not everyone's an early adopter. So how can we balance that need to, feeling that need to adapt quickly and kind of bring ourselves up to speed, but also maintain that trust with coworkers who are a little bit more resistant to change and bringing on, either new technologies, new personnel, new processes, whatever it is. Psycat, have you had to deal with this before? And if so, what was your experience like?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I manage a team, uh, I kind of see the same trend that you're saying. It's there are individuals who are excited about learning new technologies and probably are doing what they want to do because it's something that excites them. There are individuals who are kind of watching in terms of where this lands. And what has really worked is having deeper conversations on kind of doing a root cause analysis to say what's the barrier for adoption. Like, what is it that an individual is really worried about? It could be bandwidth. Like, I have so many of team members who just need to carve out more time to get into this. And so it's important for us as leaders to understand what is the barrier and working towards solving that kind of roadblock. But I kind of feel like as leaders, we also have to lead by example. So if I don't learn, if I'm not practicing, if I'm not spending my time, I don't expect my team to follow that unless they are self-motivated or finding ways to make sure they get the bandwidth that they need to focus on that. And it's also very important for us as an organization and as team leads to create that sort of a space. We actually had a hackathon recently where we asked everybody who was interested to kind of spend few days putting together an idea and actually testing out the waters. What it did was it gave a lot of exposure and headspace for individuals to really explore AI, to learn about things that they probably didn't think about, but also know what the technologies are and where things stand as of today. Um, it's important. I think one of the enterprise level initiative that we have within Chris's team is community of practice. And as an individual, I might not be able to attend almost any of I don't attend all of these COPs or community of practices. But again, thanks to AI, I can quickly do a recap and see if that's a topic that I'm interested in, go back and actually watch the entire recording, maybe at 1.5x. So the time optimization also helps, leveraging AI to learn and catch up on things. But what Chris and his leadership has done is created us kind of those spaces for us to get together, like the community of practice, the hackathons, the shared space for us to talk about where technology is moving towards. And this is as a foundation part of development plan for the team besides us working for our customers directly, because that's also on the job we learn the most. And that's an avenue that I think keeps giving our team the enrichment that they need in terms of perspectives. You're on mute, Meg.
Told you it happens at least once.
You promised us, yeah.
I told you, and that's my guarantee to you. You will have a good time, regardless of if you want to or not, and I will lose my mute button at least once. Okay, this leads to another question that we got asked in the chat earlier. This person wants to know, how is AI involved in Autodesk software development process? And how does Autodesk cultivate that constant learning environment for its employees to stay up to date with ever-changing technology? Now, I think we've talked about this a lot, like how, different ways that y'all have kind of managed to, like you said, Psycat, carve out this space or make it a priority. Do you think that there is anything else like on the Autodesk like company level that encourages this or that that goes a long way to building this company culture of continuous learning? You're nodding,
Uh,
Psycat. What do you think it is?
yeah. So I think the concepts of hackathon is also at a corporate level. We do have AI hackathons, meetups that are constantly happening for not just the team who's building AI, but every product team is also inherently using or has been using AI technologies for a while. We actually have patent in many of our cloud solutions for more than a decade. that leverage machine learning to give insights to our customers as well as users internally. So AI and machine learning is not new for Autodesk. It's definitely something that we are learning through. While there are dedicated teams within research and other divisions who are building the AI capabilities. But again, I think for me, I love the synergy that actually exists in the corporate communication channels. Like if we have Slack, there's often insights that you could just do a search and see, here's a topic. I'm curious about llama, and I'm doing a search and I'm seeing these are individuals who seem to be contributing the most, and I don't even know them.
Mhm.
But as a corporate, as a company who's so inclusive and willing to help, I've never found struggle in actually pinging that individual to say, I've seen a lot about Llama contributions from you. This is what I'm willing to learn. I want to learn. Can you help me solve some problems that I'm going through? So I guess what I'm trying to get towards is finding information is very easy. There are corporate level initiatives that allow that sort of a collaboration, and AI as capabilities are definitely like there's a dedicated AI practice channel within our team where, like I said, even if that's another news source or an updated source that I might not be watching, but I see people contributing, even sometimes over the weekend saying, hey, here's a new, maybe it's an European Union AI Act that got approved. So what does that imply? What implications would we have? So here I am. I definitely can't go out and understand all the sources, but Autodesk has been instrumental in finding a lot of those information sources for us.
And I would just add, I mean, I think it often works really well when learning is deep in the DNA of the company. And I give you a very quick example specific to Autodesk. For many years, we've had this unique benefit where every 4 years you get 6 weeks of sabbatical. So, and name a company that you have that. I mean, it's not a lot of companies. And the origin of that benefit was to allow employees to go out and do research, and you hear a lot of stories about the early days of the company, and you see the patents, the awards on the walls in many of the buildings that came from people spending time doing directed research when they went on sabbatical. Now, the sabbatical has evolved. People generally do things which are more focused on stepping away from work. But that culture of learning, of innovation still exists within Autodesk. And I think it's a deep part of the culture. And so SciCap mentions a lot of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, but I think it's really importantly a cultural value as well.
All right. We have a follow-up question from the chat as well. How does Autodesk balance the need for innovation with the demands of maintaining legacy product support, particularly for long-term users? I think this is a very, very good question. Saikat, would you like to tackle this first, or Chris, would you like to?
Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first, and I'll be really succinct about this. I mean, the truth is, whoever asked the question obviously knows this space really well. It's a real challenge. So I think if you haven't figured out, send me a LinkedIn email or find a way to get in touch with us. It's an ongoing challenge, and I think the things that we do are some of the standard practices of really making sure that we're not sacrificing the long-term strategy, but also ensuring that we satisfy some of the short-term needs. And so there's I would say the standard evaluation processes of what's the ROI of creating the feature now and what does that disrupt in terms of the longer term strategy. It's the constant and kind of ongoing struggle to kind of take the balance between those two things. But I wouldn't say there's a secret sauce here. And if you have it, please let us know.
I very much appreciate, yeah, if y'all want to share that with us, please feel free to dive in. I think that's a pretty good call out there.
Yeah, I think as we work with our customers too, I think at least for my team, a lot of this interest actually comes from the customers. So it's not just the Autodesk struggle. We also, like I said earlier, each of our customers are in their different spots in their transformation journey. So how do we get them from where they're at to adopting new technologies, probably creating disruptions that they are aspiring to get through? So it's a constant change that is as much as internal as also external, like Chris said.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's keep going. We've got a time for probably one more question before we need to go bring the topic back to Autodesk specifically a little bit. Let's talk about cultural and geographic differences. Chris, you had mentioned that you have worked in multiple countries with Autodesk over the years. As organizations become more global, what strategies do you think that Autodesk utilizes the best to help y'all navigate geographic and cultural differences, especially across teams? That sometimes this comes from change, other times this just comes from, gathering all the team together at once. But how have you seen Autodesk do this most effectively?
Well, I think it works really well at Autodesk, and I would say there's not a practice necessarily that helps us. I mean, there are a lot of practices, but I think the silver bullet is hiring really good people, really good people who have core values of respect, curiosity, desire to learn. I think all of those characteristics really help to ensure that you have cultural appreciation and people who work well to collaborate across a variety of different cultures. And I think the other thing is there are a lot of leaders within Autodesk who have cross-trained, and I use that word to define worked across many different cultures. And that shows up in our strategies. It shows up in our values and the ways in which we work. And it shows up in the ways in which the company is led. So I think there's a number of different avenues by which this is offered, but it really starts with people and making sure that you have the right people in the right places with the right core values.
Yeah, I love when we can kind of bring the conversation back to this, because a lot of times what you hear from companies is like, oh yeah, we're everybody feels this way, right? And I think it's one of the things that's important to highlight is that when we're talking about like-minded individuals, you want diversity of thought, you want diversity of background. When people and companies say they want like-minded people, what they're generally going for is like, all of us are curious. All of us want to learn things. Like they're looking for the mindset, right? You're looking for people who are open to new experiences, as opposed to what we lovingly in Ohio call the cave people. It's citizens against virtually everything. And so as long as you can can approach the cave people with a good sense of humor of like, we're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. We will get this going. And here's how we're going to do it. I think that, having that trust built up with people, it goes a very, very long way to try and, kind of get them over that hump of like,
Yeah.
but it's scary.
Okay, so messy bun and cave people, thank you for teaching me. That's wonderful. You mentioned something that I think is really important, and to share the perspective of a hiring leader. There have been so many times where we're in the midst of making a hiring decision, and it's between, let's call it, three people. And I have many times sat down and said, the thing you don't want to do is reproduce yourself through all your hires. Diversity is a superpower in a number of different ways. And I mean diversity across a broad spectrum of attributes that come and show themselves in the workplace. And I can many times sit down and think of moments where we're trying to make a final decision, and somebody in the room might say, what will we really get that's incremental from this person? What will we learn that's different from what we currently know? Or what experiences does this person bring that are truly unique? And so I think that diversity is a really big plus one, and it's one which I think is an important part of our hiring processes at Autodesk.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are down to our last 5 minutes. So we're going to kind of pull things in and narrow our focus a little bit more to just Autodesk. I have some questions that I usually ask our speakers. So I'm going to ask them for now. If you could describe the company culture in one word, what would that word be? Kat, you want to take this one?
Sure. I think for me, it's impact or being impactful.
Ooh, I
I
like
constantly see my team, people around me, we are all focused on customer success. And that really inspires me that we are constantly trying to solve the business challenges that our customers have with the impact that's necessitated. And it's usually going beyond the customer too. So a lot of this impact is actually at the industry level too. And Autodesk gives us that opportunity to do that.
I like that. That's a really good way to look at it. Chris, do you agree?
I do. Impact is a good one. I would say purpose. I
Okay.
mean, if it gave me two words, I would say trust and purpose, but giving me one word, Meg, we really want to help our customers design and make a better world. And so we wake up and we live by that purpose, and it inspires me. I know it inspires our customers. I know it inspires all of our employees. And so we are truly a purpose-driven company. And I think purpose is kind of that value, that word that, I most closely associate with my experience at Autodesk.
Excellent. Okay. All right. I'm going to hit you with two questions. I'm going to give you a chance to prepare for them. The first one is your top tip for someone who's interviewing. So this can be Autodesk specific, but it doesn't have to be. My second question, which is actually the one we're going to tackle first, is I want to know what does the human touch look like in the recruiting process? We've got a lot of people with questions about like how AI is used in the recruiting process, right? And they don't want to be discounted out of hand or out of pocket. And actually, where did this go? Sherry actually commented this, saying that, referencing Chris, what you had said about like what's on paper may or may not be representative of that person's full capacity or what they could actually do for the team. Could you touch a little bit on what the human touch looks like when it comes to utilizing the ATS? Like, are there humans that are involved in it, or is it like a bunch of computers until it hits, a recruiter's desk?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak specifically to all of the different techniques or practices that our talent acquisition group uses. I will tell you that we have a world-class talent acquisition team. And the parts of the processes that I'm involved with are incredibly human driven and incredibly human focused. So those are the elements that I can really speak to. And I would say just a tip. I mean, people often say like it's very hard for me to differentiate myself in some of these processes. But there are a lot of different avenues that we have where you can apply some personal touch. You can provide outreach. LinkedIn is a pretty powerful tool. And I often take, I can't even think of a moment where somebody came to me with a really thoughtful request for an informational conversation, and I haven't at least given them advice, or somebody to contact, or even a meeting. So I think there are a lot of different avenues by which you can display your personal strengths outside of just the core traditional submit resume, hit button processes.
I like this. Psycat, do you agree? What are some ways that you've seen people kind of help themselves to stand out, especially in this era of, ATS being run by AI, or at least, that's what it seems to be the wave of what I'm hearing, at least.
Yeah, I think going back to what Chris also said, LinkedIn is a great platform where I've known of many instances where myself included and managers on my team, we've actually gone ahead and proactively found candidates that we found would be interesting to add to the plus one for our team. And then we've had our talent acquisition team reach out to them to see if they would be interested in joining us. It's only because, like I said, I think it kind of underlines the fact that you stand out based on the social brand that you might have. Like, especially, I manage a team that's very technical. How many thought leadership articles are out there? How many, source commits do you have in your code? A lot of these can go a long way in establishing the brand of an individual, which is not just a very reactive, hey, Autodesk is only looking at the resumes that are being applied for or sent through. But we also look at sometimes proactively looking out and reaching out within our network. You'll probably see a lot more, a lot more of sharing of open positions, people in the network that we want to go and make sure that they understand that there's a role out there, and also proactively finding talent. And it has actually worked very well for us.
Okay, very cool. All right, we are at the end of time, but I just want to say, Psycat and Chris, both of you, thank you so, so much for joining us today, bringing all of your expertise to bear. We really appreciate that, as well as just, sharing your time with us this morning. It's very, very helpful. So thank you so, so much for that. Before we go, I also want to say a huge thank you to our audience as well. Truly, y'all, I love that you come to events like this, not just because I have a job, but more so, I like that you come to events like this because you just took 60 minutes out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career. That is not easy in this day and age. It is rather thankless. So whether you are a little treat person or not, listen to Meg, give yourself a pat on the back, gold star, cookie, Starbucks drink, whatever is your little treat. Because truly, y'all, good for you. Okay. Nobody tells adults that very often, but good for you. All right. Now, for the rest of today, obviously it's the start to another work week, but I hope that you go out and have the day you deserve. Whether this was your first event with Power to Fly or your 500th, we cannot wait to see you back here again on another event in the future. That's going to be it for us today, y'all, but have a great one.